Welcome to Lantern and Lullaby. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this quiet evening here. Before tonight's journey begins, allow yourself to get comfortable. Let the day drift gently behind you and allow your breathing to settle. Tonight, the soft rain beyond a familiar bedroom window will carry you somewhere between sleeping and waking. A room will begin to change, an impossible door will appear where no door has ever been, and beyond it, one dream will quietly open into another, and then another still. So, whenever you're ready, listen to the rain against the glass. Let the familiar room around you begin to soften, and our story begins. The rain has been falling for so long that you have stopped noticing where one drop ends and another begins. It moves softly against the bedroom window in silver threads, gathering into small wandering streams that slide down the glass. Beyond the curtains, the world has disappeared into darkness, leaving only the faint glow of the wet night outside. The room around you is quiet and warm, held apart from the weather by a single pane of glass and the steady shelter of the walls. There is nowhere else you need to be tonight, and nothing waiting beyond this room that cannot wait until morning. For now, the rain is enough. It settles into an easy rhythm, gentle and unhurried, until even the spaces between the drops seem filled with sleep. A soft bedside lamp leaves a small pool of warm light beside the bed, while the farther corners of the room rest in shadow. The familiar shapes around you have softened with the lateness of the hour. The wardrobe has become a quiet, dark outline. The curtains hang without movement, and the ceiling seems to hover far above in the dimness. There is something comforting in that simple certainty, in knowing the room without needing to look closely at any part of it. Outside, the rain continues with patient steadiness. Inside, the warmth beneath the covers and the gentle hush of the room make the night feel smaller, safer, and completely your own. Somewhere beyond the bedroom, the house gives a quiet creak. It is an ordinary sound, the kind that belongs to late hours and cooling walls, and it fades almost as soon as you hear it. There are no footsteps in the hallway, no doors opening, no distant voices, only the soft murmur of rain and the occasional whisper of water moving through the gutter outside. The whole house seems to have gone to sleep before you. Rooms beyond the door sit dark and still, stairs rest beneath the quiet, and every familiar space has withdrawn into the night. You remain awake for a little longer, listening to the building settle around you like something breathing slowly in its sleep. The longer you listen, the less the rain sounds like weather. It becomes a soft layer of sound spread evenly across the night, covering every sharp edge and distant thought. Drops brush the glass, water trickles somewhere beyond the sill, and from farther away comes the low hush of rain passing through unseen trees. Nothing arrives suddenly, nothing asks for your attention. The sounds repeat without ever becoming exactly the same, and there is a sleepy comfort in their small changes. You begin to notice how easily your thoughts drift between them, appearing for a moment and then passing on. Soon the rain seems less like something happening outside the room and more like something the room itself has learned to make. The bedside lamp appears a little softer than it did before. Its warm glow no longer reaches quite so far across the room, and the shadows beyond it have grown smooth and deep. You cannot remember whether the light has changed or whether your eyes have simply become tired. Either possibility feels equally unimportant. The room is still warm, the rain is still falling, and the small amber circle beside the bed seems perfectly bright enough for this hour. You watch its light rest against the nearby wall for a while. There is no flicker and no sudden change, only the quiet impression that the lamp is dimming at the same slow pace as your thoughts. The night seems to be drawing the room gently inward around you. Outside the window, the darkness has taken on a softer color. Where the glass catches the faintest light, the rain shines in narrow silver lines against a deep blue-gray night. For a moment, you think you can see the vague outline of roofs or trees beyond the curtains, but the shapes dissolve whenever you try to hold them clearly. The world outside feels farther away than it did when you first lay down. There is nothing unsettling in the feeling. Instead, the bedroom seems more sheltered than before, as though the night has widened beyond the window while leaving this one warm room untouched at its center. Your attention drifts toward the curtains again. They look a little longer now. At first, it is only an impression created by the shadows, yet the fabric seems to fall in deeper folds than you remember, reaching almost all the way from the ceiling to the floor. The color has become difficult to place in the low light, somewhere between charcoal, blue, and the muted silver of rain. You have seen these curtains every night, and yet tonight they carry the quiet grandeur of something from an older house. Nothing else appears changed. The lamp remains beside the bed, and the window is still where it has always been. But the room suddenly feels as though it has gained a few inches of height without making any sound at all. Once you notice the height of the curtains, the ceiling begins to seem different too. It appears farther above the bed, fading gently into shadow where you would normally expect to see its familiar edges. The change is so slight that you cannot decide whether it is real. There is no crack of timber or movement of plaster, no sense of the room being altered by anything physical. It is simply larger now, in the quiet way that places sometimes become larger in dreams. The walls seem to stand a little farther apart, and although you know this bedroom well, you find that you can no longer picture exactly where the ceiling ends and the night begins. The room has not become unfamiliar. That is what makes the change so easy to accept. Your lamp is still there, the rain still crosses the same window, and the bed remains exactly where it should be. Yet the air has taken on the stillness of a place you have never visited. The walls seem quieter, heavier, as though they have stood through many more nights than you remember. For a few moments, you have the peculiar sense that your bedroom exists inside another room, and that the larger one has been waiting patiently around it all along. Across the room, where there should only be an unbroken stretch of wall, a door now stands. You do not see it appear. There is no flash of light, no sound of hinges, and no moment when the wall visibly changes. The door is simply there when your eyes settle upon that part of the room. It is tall and old-fashioned, made from dark polished wood with a simple brass handle catching the bedside glow. A narrow line of warm light rests beneath it. Strangely, the sight of it feels less surprising than it should. Perhaps because the room has been preparing for it in small ways, or perhaps because dreams rarely ask permission before rearranging the familiar. You watch the quiet door and feel only curiosity. After a while, the door is no longer fully closed. A slender gap has appeared along one side, revealing a darkness beyond that is warmer than the bedroom shadows. The light beneath the door now spills faintly across the floor. From somewhere on the other side comes the softest suggestion of another room, perhaps the low crackle of a fire or the distant settling of old timber. The rain remains behind you at the window, steady and reassuring. Nothing beyond the doorway sounds hurried or strange. It feels instead like part of the same quiet night, another sheltered place connected somehow to this one. The opening is just wide enough to show the edge of a carpeted passage and the glow of a small wall lamp farther beyond. The bedroom seems to hold its breath as you move toward the doorway. The warm light beyond becomes clearer with each quiet step across the room. Up close, the door looks as though it has always belonged here. Its wood bears a soft sheen, the brass handle is cool and plain, and the frame sits neatly within a wall that only moments ago had seemed completely ordinary. Through the opening, the passage beyond waits without movement. You glance back once at the bed, the dim lamp, and the rain-marked window. Nothing has vanished. The room remains safe and familiar behind you. Then you pass through the doorway, carrying the calm of the bedroom with you into whatever waits on the other side. Beyond the threshold lies a narrow corridor that could belong to an old country house. A deep runner stretches along the floor, softening every sound, while small lamps cast gentle pools of amber light against pale walls. The passage turns somewhere ahead, so that its end remains hidden. Framed shapes hang along one side, but the light is too low to make out anything within them. There are no voices and no open rooms. Only the faint rain can still be heard, now softened by distance and several unseen walls. When you look back, the bedroom doorway remains open behind you. Its familiar light appears surprisingly small from here, like the entrance to one quiet room within a much larger sleeping house. You continue along the corridor and find that it widens gradually as it turns. The walls are paneled now in dark wood, polished enough to catch blurred reflections of the lamps without showing anything clearly. The runner beneath you gives way to a broad carpet patterned only by shadow and warm light. Every detail feels old-fashioned but cared for, elegant without being grand enough to feel formal. The house is utterly still. It has the peaceful feeling of somewhere prepared for the night, after fires have been banked low and every unnecessary light has been extinguished. At the next turn, you pause and listen. The rain is still there. It reaches you now as a distant whisper against windows somewhere beyond the walls, softened until it sounds almost like water heard from another floor. The change in distance makes the house feel larger than you first imagined. There must be rooms between you and the storm, perhaps long galleries, stairwells, and quiet chambers hidden beyond the corridor. Yet the rain remains a thread connecting this place to the bedroom you left behind. Whenever you hear it, you know the night outside has not changed. Only the space around you has opened wider. That thought makes it easy to continue, following the next warm lamp deeper into the sleeping house. The corridor opens suddenly onto a small landing at the top of a staircase. A carved wooden rail curves downward beside you, disappearing toward a lower hall lit by the glow of several shaded lamps. From here, you can see the tops of tall doorways below and part of a polished floor catching soft amber reflections. A large window rises beside the stairs, its glass dark with rain. Water trails slowly down it, turning the faint outdoor light into blurred silver lines. The sight feels familiar enough to be comforting. For a while, you remain at the landing, looking down into the quiet house. Nothing moves below. The staircase simply waits, broad and gently curved, inviting you further into the dream. You begin to descend. Each step leads further from the small bedroom door above, yet nothing about the distance feels like leaving safety behind. The staircase is wide, the carpet beneath it soft, and the lamps along the wall spread a steady light from one landing to the next. Halfway down, you can see more of the lower floor. An open archway reveals the edge of a sitting room, where a low fire glows beneath a dark mantle. Another passage disappears beneath a row of lamps toward the back of the house. The rain traces the tall stair window beside you all the way down. By the time you reach the final step, the bedroom above feels less like a place you left and more like the beginning of a dream. The lower hall is larger than the landing suggested. Its ceiling rises high above a tiled floor, partly covered by long rugs, and several archways open into rooms beyond. A fire burns quietly in one distant room, sending a low amber glow across the doorway. Elsewhere, shaded lamps illuminate polished tables, deep window recesses, and the beginning of another broad corridor. The house seems to offer itself simply as a place to explore while the rain continues outside. You stand at its center, surrounded by gentle possibilities. For the first time, you understand that this is not merely another part of your own home. The proportions are too generous, the stair too graceful, and the rooms beyond the hall belong to a house much older and larger than anything that could have been hidden behind your bedroom wall. Yet the realization arrives without alarm. The place feels shaped by sleep rather than built by ordinary hands. Its quiet corridors seem to stretch only as far as they need to. Its lamps glow wherever darkness might otherwise feel too deep. And somewhere behind every wall, the rain remains close enough to hear. You have entered the first dream completely now, though it feels almost as comfortable as the room in which the dream began. Ahead of you, the house opens in several directions. To one side, the fireside room waits with its low orange glow and rain-dark windows. Straight ahead, a long gallery disappears beneath a sequence of soft lamps. Beyond another arch, you can just make out the pale gleam of glass, perhaps a conservatory or covered garden somewhere deeper within the building. There is no need to choose quickly. The dream seems willing to unfold at exactly the pace you want it to. Behind you, the staircase rises toward the hidden bedroom from which you came. Before you, the quiet house waits with its many warm rooms. You turn toward the nearest firelight, and the first dream gently carries you onward. The nearest archway leads into a sitting room gathered around a low fire. The flames have burned down to a steady glow, bright enough to warm the dark mantel and the edges of several deep chairs without filling the room with too much light. Rain moves quietly across the tall windows beyond them, turning the glass into a shifting blue-black mirror. Nothing in the room looks recently used, yet nothing feels abandoned. A folded throw rests over one chair, a small table waits beside another, and the fire has the patient look of something meant to last until morning. You step farther inside and feel the house close gently around you, warm at your back while the storm remains on the other side of the glass. For a while, you stay near the hearth. The room asks nothing of you except to notice its quiet details. A log settles inward with a soft red glow, and a brief line of sparks rises before disappearing into the chimney. The light moves across polished wood, the curved arms of the chairs, and the heavy folds of the curtains. Beyond the windows, rain continues in silver threads, but from here it seems almost decorative, part of the room rather than a weather beyond it. The fire makes no effort to chase the darkness away. It simply holds a small, warm center within it, and you begin to understand that this house is full of places designed for lingering. A second doorway stands open on the far side of the room. Beyond it, a long gallery stretches into the house, quieter and cooler than the fireside room behind you. The floor is softened by a series of dark rugs, and small shaded lamps repeat at easy intervals along the walls. Between them hang paintings whose subjects remain indistinct in the low light, landscapes reduced to shadow, cloud and muted color. The gallery appears longer than the width of the house should allow. You do not question it. The dream has already taught you that distance here is gentle rather than exact, and that a corridor may simply continue until it has shown you everything it wants you to see. Tall windows interrupt the gallery at intervals, each one holding a different fragment of the rainy night. At the first, you see only dark trees moving faintly beyond the glass. At the next, there seems to be a stone terrace shining with water. Farther on, another window looks across a garden that appears deeper than the grounds you glimpsed from the bedroom. The views do not quite agree with one another, but the difference feels strangely natural. Rain joins them all together, silver on every pane, while the lamps behind you lay warm reflections across the glass. For a moment, it seems as though the house contains many nights at once, all of them peaceful, all of them raining. Near the middle of the gallery, a shallow alcove opens between two tall bookcases. A single chair sits beneath a shaded lamp, with shelves rising around it into the dimness. The sight carries a faint familiarity that you cannot immediately place. For just a moment you remember the feeling of another impossible room, of books where walls should have been, of a bedroom quietly becoming somewhere else. The memory does not sharpen into an answer. It simply passes through you like the recollection of a dream from another night. You move on before the thought can settle, leaving the little reading alcove glowing behind you like a secret the house has chosen not to explain. At the end of the gallery, the passage turns without revealing where it is going. The walls here are lighter, the woodwork narrower, and the air carries the faint, cool scent of rain-damp stone. A small table stands beneath a lamp, holding only a bowl of pale flowers and nothing that might tell you where you are. The corridor bends again. For a few steps, the glow of the gallery disappears behind you and the house becomes wonderfully quiet. Then another quality of light appears ahead, not the amber of a lamp or the red warmth of a fire, but a softer grey-blue brightness spread across glass. You follow it, already certain that the house has opened another part of itself. At the next corner, a pair of tall glass doors stands open. Beyond them lies a conservatory, long and narrow, its roof divided into dark panes covered with rain. Soft lamps glow at floor level among planters and stone benches, leaving the higher glass to the cool color of the night. The change in sound is immediate. Rain that had been distant through the walls is suddenly close again, tapping above you in thousands of small, overlapping notes. The familiar sound makes the strange house feel connected to the bedroom where the dream began. You step beneath the glass roof, and the storm seems to settle gently overhead without ever coming inside. The conservatory extends farther than you expected. Ferns lean over the edges of stone planters, glossy leaves hold beads of moisture, and climbing plants disappear into the shadowed framework above. A narrow tiled path winds between them rather than running straight ahead. Each turn reveals another bench, another lamp, another quiet arrangement of leaves catching silver blue light from the roof. Somewhere nearby, water drips at a slow and regular pace into a hidden basin. The air feels cooler here, carrying the clean green scent of damp earth and leaves. You walk slowly, letting the rain above and the soft warmth of the lamps below create a rhythm that seems made for sleep. The path widens around a small indoor pool. Its surface is almost completely still, disturbed only when a drop falls from an overhanging leaf and sends a circle quietly outward. Pale stone borders the water, and tall plants rise behind it in layered greens softened by darkness. Through the glass roof, the clouds move so slowly that they seem nearly fixed in place. The pool reflects them anyway, along with the warm lamps and the black ribs of the conservatory roof. For a moment you cannot tell whether you are looking down into water or through another window into the same rainy night. The uncertainty is pleasant, and you leave the reflection unexamined. At the far end of the conservatory, a covered passage leads outside without truly leaving shelter. Its roof is low and tiled, its sides open onto a small inner courtyard washed in rain. You step beneath the covered edge and look across wet stone towards a fountain at the center. The courtyard is enclosed on all four sides by the house, with upper windows glowing softly above dark climbing vines. Rain falls freely into the open square, silver in the lamplight, while you remain dry beneath the arcade. The contrast makes the courtyard feel like a private piece of weather kept safely inside the house. You continue along the sheltered edge, listening to rain and fountain water mingle. The fountain is simple and old, a broad stone basin with water spilling quietly from one level to the next. Rain dimples its surface and runs over the worn rim in thin, shining lines. Nothing about it is grand enough to demand attention, yet the sound gathers the entire courtyard around it. You pause beneath an arch and listen. Above, the windows remain dark or softly lit, each one suggesting another quiet room somewhere within the dream. Below them, wet stone reflects the amber lamps as broken ribbons of light. The courtyard feels sealed away from time, a place where it could rain for hours without anything needing to change. Eventually, the covered walk draws you onward. Across the courtyard, the opposite wing seems warmer than the one you left. Several windows glow behind rain-softened glass, and through one you can make out the edge of curtains and the faint shape of a lamp. The sight gives the curious impression that the house is occupied by comfort itself, rather than by anyone you might meet. No shadow crosses the windows, no footsteps disturb the floors above. The rooms simply remain prepared, lit just enough to make the darkness welcoming. A covered walkway follows the courtyard wall toward that warmer wing, its arches framing the fountain again and again as you move. With every arch, the room you came from feels a little farther away. The walkway is narrow, paved in old stone polished smooth by years that may never have happened. Small lamps hang between the arches, each one throwing a modest circle of light across the path. To your left, rain continues to fall into the courtyard. To your right, tall windows reveal quiet interior rooms. A small drawing room, a table beside an unlit hearth, a cabinet of glass and dark wood. You pass them without entering. There is a sense that the house contains more rooms than any one night could explore, and that nothing will be lost by leaving some of them unseen. Ahead, the walkway ends at a door standing open beneath a warm lamp. Beyond the doorway, a broad staircase rises into the opposite wing. It is different from the staircase you descended earlier, quieter and more intimate, with a deep runner and a polished banister following the wall. A tall window on the landing shows rain sliding across darkness outside. You begin to climb. The courtyard drops slowly below you, its fountain becoming softer with each step until only the rain remains. At the turn of the stair, a shaded lamp lights a small table holding a vase of pale leaves. Above it, the upper floor waits in gentle shadow. The ascent feels less like going somewhere new and more like being led toward a room the dream has already chosen for you. The staircase opens onto a bedroom corridor. The change is immediate. The ceilings are slightly lower here, the carpets deeper, and the lamps farther apart. Closed doors line both sides of the passage, each one different in small ways, yet all of them quiet. There are no numbers, no names, and nothing to suggest which room belongs to whom. At intervals, narrow windows look down into the courtyard, where the fountain is now only a silver shape through the rain. You walk slowly along the corridor, and with every step, the house seems to settle more deeply into the night. Somewhere ahead, one doorway is not completely closed. A warm line of light lies across the carpet from the partly open door. Unlike the impossible doorway in your bedroom, this one feels entirely at home in its surroundings. You push it wider and find a bedchamber waiting beyond. The room is larger than the bedroom where the dream began, but softer somehow, with muted walls, a small fire reduced to embers, and tall curtains drawn around rain-dark windows. A canopied bed stands at the center beneath gently draped fabric. Nothing in the room seems arranged for display. Everything appears chosen for quiet. The low lamps, the deep rug, the chair near the hearth, the heavy blankets folded back on the bed. You step inside. The canopied bed draws your attention without needing to. Its dark wooden posts rise into soft folds of fabric, creating a smaller sheltered space within the already sheltered room. The covers are pale and heavy, catching only a little of the amber light from the bedside lamps. Beyond them, rain whispers against the windows with the same steady rhythm that began the night. The sound is quieter here than it was in the conservatory, softened by curtains and distance. You move closer, noticing how the bed seems both unfamiliar and strangely expected. It has the unmistakable feeling of a place reached at the end of a long day, even though this night has contained no day at all. Standing beside the bed, you realize that several details in the room resemble the bedroom you left behind. The lamp is not the same, but its pool of light falls at the same angle. The curtains are grander, yet they frame the rain in a familiar way. Even the small table beside the bed occupies almost the place you would expect it to. The similarities are not exact enough to explain, they simply give the room the comforting shape of summer remembered. For an instant, you wonder whether the dream house has been carrying pieces of your bedroom with it all along, rearranging them gently as you moved deeper inside. The thought fades before it needs an answer. You settle into the bed, and the room changes only because you are seeing it from lower down. The canopy now forms a dark, soft frame overhead. Across the room, the remaining firelight glows quietly beneath the mantel, and the curtains hold back the rainy night. The mattress gives beneath you with a deep, comfortable weight. Nothing in the house seems to be waiting for you to continue. The corridors, courtyard, conservatory, and long gallery can remain exactly where they are until some other dream chooses to find them. For now, the bed is enough. The rain has followed you all the way here, and its rhythm begins once more to smooth the edges of every thought. The bedside lamps seem softer after a while. Their light gathers close to the bed, leaving the rest of the room to settle into blue-grey shadow. Rain continues at the windows, steady and patient, but even that sound begins to feel farther away. You remember the first bedroom, the door that should not have existed, the staircase, the fire, the glass roof, and the quiet courtyard. The memories already seem less like places you have just crossed, and more like scenes from a dream you are beginning to forget. There is a strange comfort in falling asleep while already dreaming. You do not try to decide where one sleep ends and another begins. The room darkens gently around you, and somewhere beyond the canopy, the first dream gives way. When awareness returns, the first thing you notice is the ceiling. It is nothing like the dark canopy beneath which you fell asleep. Above you stretches a single vast panel of midnight glass, framed by pale beams and filled entirely with stars. They are not painted there, nor reflected from anywhere you can see. They seem impossibly distant, with faint cloud moving beneath them rather than across them. For several quiet moments, you remain exactly where you are, allowing the unfamiliar room to form around the edges of your vision. There is no sound of rain against the roof. Instead, there is only a deep stillness and the peculiar sensation that somewhere beyond these walls, the weather is very far below. You do not wonder whether you have awakened. The thought no longer seems useful. The room beneath the glass ceiling is surprisingly simple. Pale walls rise around a low bed, interrupted not by windows, but by 3 broad open arches. Beyond them there is no garden, street, or neighboring roof. There is only a vast field of cloud lit faintly by moonlight. The clouds lie far beneath the level of the room, rolling into the distance like a silent sea. A small lamp glows beside an empty chair, its warmth almost ordinary against the impossible view. When you look for the rain that followed you through the first dream, you finally find it. Far below the arches, silver threads descend from the underside of the cloud layer into darkness. Here, above the weather, the air remains completely still. One of the arches opens directly onto a covered walkway. There is no door between inside and outside, only a change beneath your feet from soft rug to cool, pale stone. A roof extends overhead on narrow beams, while one side of the passage remains completely open to the sky. Along the other side runs the outer wall of the room in which you woke. From here, the building seems much larger than it appeared from inside. Its windows and arches continue around a corner, vanishing into blue darkness as though an entire house has been built at the edge of the air. The moonlight is soft enough that the warm light behind you remains visible. You step onto the passage and nothing moves beneath your weight. At the open edge, you finally understand the silence. The rain is falling beneath you. Cloud gathers several stories below the walkway, and from its dark underside, countless silver lines descend toward a world that cannot be seen. Above the clouds there is no storm at all. The stone beneath you remains dry. The beams overhead hold no droplets. Even the air carries none of the dampness that followed you through the earlier rooms. You stand between 2 kinds of night, with stars above and rainfall below. For a while, the sight is so peaceful that it seems less impossible than the ordinary idea of rain falling from the sky. Farther along the passage, a staircase curves downward around the exterior of the building. The staircase has no visible destination. It follows the outer wall of the house in a broad curve, descending past windows and arches toward the clouds. Yet after only a short distance, another landing appears below, where there should have been nothing but open air. You continue toward it. The building seems to create exactly as much architecture as your next few steps require. Behind you, the upper walkway remains clear. Ahead, the lower landing waits beside a doorway set into a wall that could not possibly have been there from above. You have the strange impression that the house is not changing around you. Rather, it simply does not decide what it contains until you need to see it. The thought feels perfectly natural here. From the lower landing, you see another building hanging across the darkness. It resembles part of the same house, though nothing connects its foundations to yours. Tall windows glow faintly along its face, and steep roofs rise behind them against the stars. Between the two buildings stretches a narrow, covered bridge. There are no cables supporting it and no pillars reaching down through the clouds. It simply crosses the open air because, in this dream, that is apparently what bridges are allowed to do. A row of small lights runs beneath its roof, making the path ahead feel intimate despite the immense space surrounding it. You move toward the entrance. The bridge is narrower than it appeared from the landing. A wooden roof hangs low overhead, supported by dark beams polished smooth with age. The sides remain open between waist-high stone walls, leaving the stars and clouds visible in both directions. Halfway across, the houses behind and ahead seem equally distant. For a brief moment, you are inside neither of them. There is only the bridge, the soft lamps, the cloud sea, and the faint silver rain passing far beneath your path. Nothing sways, nothing creaks. The bridge feels as solid as any corridor you have walked tonight. At the far end, instead of an ordinary hallway, a square room waits with all four of its doors standing open. The square room at the end of the bridge contains almost nothing. There is a deep chair, a low table, 4 tall windows, and 4 identical doorways arranged around the walls. The floor is dark wood. The ceiling is plain. A single globe of warm light hangs overhead without any visible flame. You step inside and look back through the doorway. The covered bridge remains exactly where you left it. Yet something about the room feels different from the rest of the house. It feels less like a destination than a pause. As you move toward the central window, the 4 open doors begin to close one after another, gently and without sound. You feel no need to stop them. The room moves so gently that you notice it first through the windows. The bridge outside begins sliding away, not downward and not sideways in any way that matches ordinary motion. It simply recedes, taking the building with it until both hang at a distance in the night. Inside, nothing trembles. The lamp does not sway. The chair remains perfectly still. You cannot hear wheels, machinery, wind, or anything else that might explain the movement. The room itself seems to be traveling independently through the dream. Cloud passes slowly beneath the windows. Ahead, isolated roofs and towers begin to emerge from the darkness, each one standing alone in the air. The traveling room carries you between structures that could never belong to the same city. A narrow stone tower rises alone from the clouds with a single warm window near its top. Farther on, a steep slate roof floats beneath a chimney from which no smoke emerges. An arched passage stands by itself with no walls attached to either side. Then comes a row of upper-story windows suspended in darkness, their rooms hidden behind softly drawn curtains. None of these fragments seem ruined or unfinished. They appear complete in exactly the form the dream requires. You pass them slowly, as though moving through half-remembered pieces of places that were never fully built. Ahead, one enormous circular structure begins to fill the view. The room slows beside the circular structure. One of its doors opens without warning, though there is still no sound. Outside lies a small stone platform fitted perfectly against the threshold. The traveling room has brought you somewhere. Behind the platform, a tall arch opens into a round chamber lit entirely by cool light. When you step out and turn back, the square room remains waiting for only a moment. Then its door closes. Without tracks, cables, or any visible path to follow, the entire room moves quietly away into the night. You watch until its warm windows become 4 small points above the clouds. The circular chamber waits behind you. The chamber is built around an enormous circular opening in the floor. A broad stone walkway follows its edge, protected by a carved waist-high wall. At first, you expect to see water below. Instead, you see the moon. It hangs far beneath the chamber, bright and complete, surrounded by stars. There is no reflection and no visible bottom. The opening appears to look directly through the world into another sky. Cool light rises from it and spreads across the underside of the arches overhead. You walk slowly around the rim, looking down only when you wish to. The sight is not vertiginous. It feels strangely sheltered, as though the circular wall holds the impossible distance safely in its center. A staircase begins partway around the chamber. It descends along the curved wall, following the moonwell in a slow spiral. Every few steps, an arch opens onto the central space, revealing the moon from a slightly different height. You descend without feeling that you are traveling downward. The moon never seems closer. The stars beneath remain just as distant. Only the chamber changes around you, its stone becoming darker and its arches lower as the staircase continues. Small recessed lights appear within the wall at long intervals, enough to soften each turn without competing with the silver glow from the center. At last, the stair reaches a doorway beneath a sloping roof. Beyond the doorway is an attic larger than the house that could contain it. Dark timber rafters cross high above, disappearing into distance beneath steep roofs. The floor stretches between them in broad sections of old wood. There are no stored boxes, forgotten furniture, or covered objects. Instead, long openings between sections of roof reveal slow clouds drifting at the same height as the floor. Now and then, a pale strand of mist passes through one opening and disappears through another without dampening anything it touches. Warm lights hang low between the beams, making islands of shelter beneath the vast, dark roof. Far away, suspended amongst the rafters, you see the outline of a small room. A wide boarded path crosses the attic toward the distant room. The timber beneath you is old but perfectly firm. On either side, the attic opens between its enormous rafters, and cloud drifts quietly through spaces where walls should have been. At one point, the mist crosses the path ahead of you. It thins as it reaches the warm light, turning briefly silver before passing onward through the opposite roof. The experience feels less like walking through weather and more like watching the dream breathe. The suspended room grows clearer with every step. It hangs between 4 immense beams, supported by dark braces, with a single warm window facing you. A small enclosed walkway connects it to the path. The suspended room is unlike any bedroom you have seen tonight. Its walls are made from warm, dark timber, fitted between the immense rafters of the attic. The ceiling slopes closely overhead. A broad window occupies almost the entire far wall, looking not onto land, but across slow clouds moving between distant roofs. The bed is built into a deep wooden recess, surrounded by soft fabric and heavy pale covers. There is no fireplace. There are no grand curtains or elaborate furnishings, only a low lamp, a small shelf, the recessed bed, and the enormous quiet world beyond the glass. After the scale of the attic, the room feels wonderfully small. It is a shelter hidden inside something vast. The bed is set so deeply into the wall that climbing into it feels like entering a small room of its own. The timber around it absorbs most of the sound. Even the low movements of the attic seem distant from here. Through the broad window, clouds pass slowly from one side to the other. Now and then, an isolated roof or glowing upper window appears beyond them and disappears again, as though other pieces of the dream are quietly drifting past. The lamp beside the recess leaves a soft band of light across the blankets. You settle closer to the bed and feel the immense attic recede. For the first time since waking beneath the stars, the world becomes small again. Once you are lying down, another small impossibility reveals itself. The view outside is changing. At first, you assume the clouds are moving past the window. Then one enormous roof beam slides slowly across the distance, followed by an opening in the attic that you remember passing on foot. The suspended bedchamber itself is moving. There is no sensation of motion inside. The blankets remain still, the lamp steady, the timber silent. The room simply drifts between the rafters, carrying you through the enormous attic as gently as the traveling room carried you through the night. You smile at the dream's quiet insistence that even its bedrooms need not stay where they are placed. The drifting room moves beyond the brightest part of the attic. One by one, the hanging lights disappear behind the rafters until only their distant glow remains. Outside the window, the cloud sea opens wider. For a moment, there is nothing beyond the glass except soft moonlit vapor and a depth of blue night. Then far below, beneath a break in the clouds, you notice rain again. It falls in silver lines into darkness, just as it did beneath the first walkway. The sight feels like finding something familiar after traveling very far away. The rain has followed every layer of the dream without ever needing to enter the room. The lamp beside you begins to dim. The room continues to drift, though there is no longer any need to know where it is going. The clouds beyond the window become softer and less distinct. The final attic light disappears. Only the dim lamp beside the bed remains, casting a narrow warmth across the timber wall. You think briefly of the rainy bedroom where the night began, then of the impossible door, then of the first dream house, then of waking beneath a ceiling filled with stars. Each memory seems to belong to someone who dreamed it long ago. You have fallen so far into sleep that the idea of waking feels more distant than the rain beneath the clouds. The lamp fades to almost nothing. The traveling room becomes completely still, and somewhere within that stillness, you fall asleep for the third time. There is no clear moment when the third sleep ends. The dark timber around you simply ceases to be there. For a while there is only a deep blue-black stillness, neither indoors nor outside, with no ceiling above and no distant horizon ahead. Then a pale surface becomes visible beneath you. It stretches forward like a broad strip of smooth stone, though there are no edges you can clearly see and nothing supporting it from below. The darkness around it is not empty in an unsettling way. It feels unfinished, as though you have arrived somewhere before the walls, windows, weather, and rooms of a dream have decided what they are going to become. You remain still for a moment. Somewhere very far away, a single drop of rain falls. Tiny points of light begin appearing in the darkness. At first, they seem to be stars overhead. Then you notice others beside you. More shine beneath the edge of the pale floor. There is no single direction in which the sky begins. It seems to curve gently around the path until you are standing inside an enormous night with no true top or bottom. The effect should feel impossible, yet strangely enclosed, as though the stars themselves have formed the distant walls of this place. You continue forward. Nothing changes beneath your feet, but ahead, a faint vertical shimmer interrupts the darkness, stretching from somewhere above your sight to somewhere below it. As you approach, you recognize the sound before the shape. Rain. The rain is falling from nowhere. There is no cloud above it and no ground beneath it. Thousands of silver drops descend within a perfectly vertical band several meters wide, forming a transparent curtain across the darkness. Outside that narrow boundary, the air remains completely dry. The strange division is so precise that you can stand only a step away and feel nothing at all. The rain makes the same soft, familiar sound that has followed you throughout the night. Yet here, there is no window for it to touch and no roof to shelter beneath. It simply falls because some part of the dream remembers rain. Beyond the first curtain, another pale shimmer waits, and then another. The path leads between several kinds of weather that never touch one another. On one side, rain falls in its silver curtain. On the other, thousands of white snowflakes descend through a column of perfectly still air. Farther ahead, a low veil of mist drifts slowly sideways, disappearing at an invisible boundary before it can cross the path. None of the weather reaches you. Each belongs to its own narrow piece of the dream. You walk between rain, snow, mist, and clear night as easily as passing between rooms. Their sounds change with every few steps. Rain softens behind you. Snow has almost no sound at all. The mist carries only the faintest whisper. Ahead, an unexpected pool of warm amber light appears in the darkness. The warm light belongs to a room that has no room around it. A deep chair rests upon a small rug. Beside it stands a plain wooden table and a shaded lamp. That is all. There are no walls, no ceiling, and no floorboards beneath the rug. The little arrangement simply exists beside the path, surrounded on every side by the folded night. The lamp throws a familiar amber glow across the chair and fabric, stopping gently at the edge of the rug, as though darkness itself were a wall. You realize that comfort does not require a house here. The dream can remember the feeling of a room without remembering the architecture that contained it. You leave the chair untouched, carrying that thought with you. Farther along, the fragments become more elaborate. A tall window frame stands by itself with no wall attached. Several meters beyond it hangs a short length of ceiling molding supported by nothing. A fireplace mantle rests against darkness without a chimney or hearth. Nearby, 3 carpeted stair steps rise and simply stop. None of the pieces appear broken. They look complete. They simply have not yet been joined into anything. It feels as though you are walking through the ingredients of rooms before a sleeping mind has decided how to arrange them. A lamp glows beneath the floating strip of ceiling. A curtain moves beside the wall-less window, and through the glass, impossibly, rain is falling somewhere else. You recognize the rain beyond the freestanding window, not simply the weather, the view itself. Behind the wet glass are the softly drawn curtains of the bedroom where the night began. You can see the edge of the familiar bedside lamp and the faint shape of the wall beyond it. Nothing moves within the room. For a moment, it feels as though you are looking through the wrong side of your own memory. The bedroom is there, but there is no wall surrounding the window and no way to enter it. The image remains perfectly still, except for the rain sliding over the glass. Then the lamp within the remembered room dims. The view becomes dark again, leaving only your own side of the window. A quiet change begins overhead. The short strip of molding is no longer alone. Another section appears beyond it, then another. Dark beams extend between them, joining in silence until a ceiling stretches above part of the path. There is still no room beneath it, only ceiling, hanging lamps, and darkness where walls should be. As you continue, a section of carpet forms beneath the ceiling. A side table appears near its edge. The pieces do not materialize dramatically. You simply notice them whenever your attention returns. It feels less as though the dream is building something, and more as though it is remembering what should have been there all along. The first stair appears beneath the edge of the floating ceiling, then a second, then a third. You never see any of them arrive. Whenever you look again, the staircase has simply become a little longer. A dark wooden rail follows beside it. Above, the ceiling rises to make space. Below, the carpet reshapes itself around the first step. By the time you reach the staircase, it climbs toward a landing that did not exist moments before. A warm light waits at the top. You begin to ascend. Behind you, the unfinished fragments remain scattered across the darkness. Ahead, the pieces have started agreeing with one another. At the top of the stairs, the dream completes a room around you. It belongs to nowhere you have visited, yet pieces of the entire night seem to have found their way into it. One wall carries the pale stone arches of the house above the clouds. Another is formed from warm, dark timber like the suspended bedchamber. Above, a narrow panel of glass reveals stars. A rain-dark window stands beside a small lamp whose light falls exactly as it did in the first bedroom. None of the details clash. The dream has combined them without needing to explain how. You stand at the center of a place assembled entirely from memories of other places. Then, almost immediately, the edges begin to soften. The room does not collapse. It simply stops being completely certain. The corner between stone and timber fades first. A section of ceiling ends before reaching the wall. The carpet loses its boundary and becomes a strip extending into darkness. One arch remains standing after the stone beside it has disappeared. The lamp continues glowing as though nothing has changed. Within moments, the complete room has returned to fragments, yet the process feels peaceful. Nothing is being destroyed. The dream is merely loosening its grip on one arrangement so that another can form. Ahead, squares of soft light begin appearing one after another across the darkness. There is no longer a continuous path. Instead, broad rectangles of pale light lie across the darkness at comfortable intervals. Each one is large enough to stand within before the next begins. As you move forward, the illuminated section behind you slowly fades. Another appears farther ahead. The route exists only where you need it. There are no visible lamps producing the light and no walls to contain it. The darkness between each section remains deep but calm. You begin to notice that the shapes resemble floors of rooms seen from above, empty outlines waiting for furniture that will never arrive. The final pool of light stops before a row of freestanding door frames. The doors stand several paces apart. Each is complete, with polished wood, a simple handle, and a frame that ends cleanly against the darkness. There are no walls connecting them, no corridors between them. One door is closed. Another stands slightly open onto a glow of pale blue. A third reveals only warm darkness beyond its threshold. You realize that perhaps rooms begin here with doors rather than the other way around. The dream chooses an entrance first and decides later what belongs behind it. You pass the first two. The last door has no light beyond it at all, but from somewhere on the other side comes the unmistakable sound of rain. Beyond the final door, there is no room. There is rain. It falls through an enormous dark space from somewhere you cannot see, filling everything beyond the threshold in silver vertical lines. Yet the doorway itself remains dry. The sound is fuller here than anywhere else in the deepest dream. You stand beneath the empty frame and listen. Gradually, shapes begin appearing within the rain. Not objects, boundaries. Straight lines where falling water stops. A dry corner, the outline of a ceiling, the suggestion of a floor. The rain itself seems to be defining a room by falling everywhere except where the room is meant to exist. The invisible room becomes clear without ever gaining walls. Rain falls along every side of it, but cannot enter. Above, the water stops against the shape of a ceiling that remains completely transparent. Around you, 4 dry boundaries hold back the storm. A small amber light appears near the center. Its glow makes the falling rain beyond each unseen wall shimmer softly. You are standing inside a room made only from absence. Nothing physical separates you from the weather, and yet not a single drop crosses the boundary. For the first time, you understand that the dream does not need materials at all. It only needs the idea of shelter. The dry room becomes narrower as you continue. Its invisible corners round gently until the space around you feels circular. Rain now falls on every side, like a silver curtain surrounding a perfectly quiet center. The amber light behind you disappears. Only cool, reflected brightness remains. There is nothing here except the dry floor and the rainfall beyond its unseen boundary. You stop. The sound is everywhere, yet the center itself feels remarkably still. After all the rooms, bridges, stairs, towers, clouds, windows, and moving architecture, the deepest point of the dream contains almost nothing. Perhaps that is why it feels important. The rain above you separates. A perfect circle of clear night opens overhead. Stars appear through it, faint at first, and then impossibly sharp. The opening widens until the rain seems to hang only around the edges of the world. There is no ceiling, no building, no cloud. Only the dry, circular floor beneath you, stars above, and rainfall surrounding the boundary. The simplicity feels familiar. You remember waking beneath the glass ceiling in the second dream, though now even the glass has been removed. Nothing remains between you and the night. Then, somewhere beyond the rain, you hear a softer sound. Rain touching a window. The sound is very faint. A drop touches glass, then another. The enormous rainfall around you continues, yet your attention settles entirely on that quieter rhythm beyond it. You know the sound. It is not the rain beneath the clouds, not the rain on the conservatory roof, not the courtyard. It is the smaller, closer rain from the bedroom at the beginning of the night. As you listen, the silver curtain surrounding you becomes softer. The stars above lose some of their sharpness. At the edge of the dry circle, a vertical fold of dark fabric appears where there was nothing before. It looks almost like a curtain. The single fold of fabric becomes two. Between them appears a rectangle of dark glass crossed by rain. The stars above fade until they could almost be shadows on a ceiling. A small amber glow forms somewhere to your left. The circular dry floor no longer feels circular. Its edges straighten quietly. The vast, deepest dream is reducing itself to familiar proportions without ever visibly moving. Rain continues against the newly formed glass. Curtains hang beside it. A wall emerges only as a difference in darkness. You have the strange sense that the entire night is being folded smaller and smaller around one remembered room. Yet one important part is still missing. The door stands alone at first. Dark, polished wood, a plain brass handle, a narrow line of warm light beneath it. You recognize it immediately. It is the same impossible door that appeared on the bedroom wall so long ago. Only now there is no wall around it. The last traces of the deepest dream remain beyond its frame. Softened stars, distant rain, and darkness without an edge. For a while, you simply stand before it. You have traveled through dreams within dreams, through rooms that moved, weather that waited, and places that existed only because you were there to see them. And somehow, at the very center of all that impossibility, the way back is the simplest thing you have encountered. A door. Its handle catches the faint, warm light. Then, very quietly, it begins to open. The door opens only a little farther. Beyond it, there is no corridor, room, or landscape. There is simply darkness, touched by warmth. A narrow amber glow reaches across the floor from somewhere you cannot see. creating enough of a path to make the threshold feel inviting. Behind you, silver rain continues around the circular sanctuary. Ahead, there is no rain at all. You step through. The sound changes immediately. The enormous rainfall becomes distant and softened, as though a door has closed somewhere several rooms away. When you look back, the freestanding wooden door remains alone in the darkness. Very slowly, it swings shut. The thin line of warm light beneath it disappears. For the first time in a long while, there is only one direction left to go. For several moments, you hear rain without knowing where it is. Then, the sound moves above you. The silver curtains that surrounded the deepest dream are gone. Instead, faint drops begin falling somewhere ahead from darkness overhead toward darkness below. They do not reach the path. You simply watch them fall in the ordinary direction you remember. After rain beneath clouds, rain without clouds, and rain held against invisible walls, the simplicity feels almost strange. Above the falling water, the stars no longer surround you on every side. They have gathered into one place, up. Without any visible movement, the dream has remembered which way the sky belongs. And once the sky has somewhere to be, everything else begins to follow. Cloud gathers slowly beneath the stars, not below your feet, not beside you, above. Its familiar position makes the night suddenly enormous in a different way. A horizon begins to form where darkness had previously continued forever. The pale surface beneath you deepens from something almost colorless into ordinary gray stone. Far ahead, the smallest silhouette interrupts the skyline. At first, it could be another cloud. Then a sloping roof separates itself from the darkness. A chimney follows. One warm window appears beneath it. The sight is almost startling in its normality. After everything the dream has shown you, a roof with weather above it feels like the strangest miracle of all. By the time you reach the roofline, it has become part of a sheltered landing. Stone lies firmly beneath you. A wall rises at one side. Timber supports a small roof overhead. For once, nothing appears suspended. Nothing waits for you to look at it before deciding whether to exist. The house simply stands. A rain-dark window is set into the wall, and beyond its glass, the night behaves exactly as night should. Cloud above, darkness below, water traveling down the pane. Nearby, an open doorway leads inside. You realize that you have crossed some invisible boundary between the deepest dream and the layer above it. The impossible has not vanished. It has simply begun obeying more rules. Inside, a small landing waits beside one enormous window. Cloud fills almost the entire view beyond it. For an instant, you remember the room where weather lay beneath the house and rain fell into darkness below. But the cloud is changing. As you watch, it sinks gradually from the glass. First, the upper pane clears, then the middle. Soon the clouds rest where distant clouds normally belong, beneath the stars, but above an unseen world. Rain gathers on the outside of the window and begins traveling downward in slow, familiar lines. The dream seems to be putting its weather back in order. Beside the window, a narrow passage stretches into warm shadow. You follow it. The passage grows darker as you continue. Heavy timber appears overhead. At first, the beams seem enormous. and for a moment you remember the vast attic where clouds moved between the rafters. But these beams no longer disappear into impossible distance. With every few steps, they seem nearer together, lower, more ordinary. The spaces between them fill with shadowed plaster. The immense structure quietly reduces itself until what remains is simply the ceiling of an old house. No cloud passes through it. No suspended room hangs overhead. A small shaded lamp glows at the next turn. The dream has remembered timber without needing to remember the impossible attic that once contained it. The passage turns, and the old dream house is there again. Not all of it, only enough to recognize. A carpet runner lies beneath your feet. Dark wood follows the lower walls. Two shaded lamps cast small pools of amber light ahead. There are no vast galleries and no impossible distances now. The corridor ends exactly where it appears to end. A closed door waits at one side. A rain-dark window occupies the other. The simplicity makes the house feel smaller than you remember, almost as though the enormous first dream has already begun folding itself away. At the far end, a staircase rises towards a warmer upper floor. You know without needing to decide that this is the way back. Earlier in the night, staircases carried you deeper. This one leads upward. The runner is soft beneath each step, and the dark wooden banister catches the light from lamps set far apart along the wall. Through a tall window beside the stair, rain passes across ordinary darkness. There are no clouds beneath you, no moons hidden below the floor. Only the faint suggestion of treetops beyond wet glass. With every step, the house becomes quieter. The ceiling lowers, the staircase narrows. By the time you reach the upper landing, it no longer feels like part of a grand dream house. It feels like the staircase of somewhere much closer to home. The bedroom corridor is much shorter than before. Only a few doors remain. Their dark wood is familiar, but the endless sleeping wing has vanished. A narrow window at the far end holds the rain. The deep carpet absorbs every step. One door stands open. Warm light spills from it across the floor. You recognize the room beyond before you reach the threshold. The canopied bed is there, the small hearth, the tall curtains, the place where you fell asleep inside the first dream. Yet returning to it feels different now. It no longer seems like a destination. It feels like a layer you are passing through on your way somewhere simpler. The canopied room waits exactly as you remember it. The covers remain folded back. A faint glow survives in the hearth. Rain whispers beyond the curtains. But you do not return to the bed. You have already slept here once. Instead, your attention settles on the opposite wall. A tall, dark wooden door now stands there. The sight feels familiar before you consciously recognize it. Polished wood, plain brass handle, a fine line of warmer light beneath. The same door that appeared in the first bedroom, the same door that waited at the deepest center. It seems the dream has carried one doorway through every layer. This time, you already know what lies beyond it. The door opens. On the other side is the bedroom where the night began. For a moment, seeing it feels stranger than any floating tower or moon beneath the floor. The bed is in its familiar place. The small lamp glows beside it. The curtains frame the rain-marked window. The wardrobe stands quietly in shadow. Everything is exactly where you remember leaving it. The room seems incredibly small after the world's hidden behind its wall. You remain at the threshold, looking from one bedroom into the other. Behind you waits the old canopied room of the first dream. Ahead waits the ordinary room that started everything. The distance between them is only the width of a doorway. You step into the familiar bedroom. The change is immediate. The ceiling feels lower. The air feels warmer. Rain against the window is close again, no longer carried through courtyards, glass roofs, clouds, or invisible walls. Behind you, the impossible doorway remains open. Through it, the canopied bedchamber has already become darker. The hearth is barely visible. The corridor beyond it has disappeared entirely. Nothing draws you back. The first dream has finished whatever it needed to show you. You take another step into the room, and the bedside lamp casts the same small circle of light that began the night. Behind you, the old wooden door begins to close. The door closes without a sound. For a few moments, a narrow amber line remains beneath it. You watch the line grow thinner. The brass handle loses its shine. The dark wood becomes difficult to distinguish from the surrounding shadow. Rain continues at the window. Nothing else in the room changes. Gradually, the warm line beneath the impossible door fades completely. There is no dramatic ending, no final sound from the house beyond. Only the quiet sense of a great distance becoming unreachable. The door remains for another moment as a darker shape against the wall. Then even its outline begins to soften. When your attention returns to the wall, the door is gone. There is no frame, no handle, no seam where dark wood once stood, only the same unbroken surface you remember from before the dream began. You could almost convince yourself that nothing had ever appeared there. Almost. The room still carries small traces of unfamiliar scale. The curtains seem a little too tall. The ceiling still feels farther away than it should. The shadows seem deeper in corners that were once ordinary. But even those differences are fading. The room is returning to itself in the same quiet way it first became something else. Nothing moves. You simply notice that less is strange each time you look. The ceiling settles closer, not visibly, not with any movement you could measure. It simply stops seeming impossibly high. The curtains lose their old house grandeur and return to the familiar length you know. The walls stand at ordinary distances again. The bedroom is small, comfortably small. After houses above clouds and rooms large enough to contain weather, the familiar proportions feel like another kind of shelter. The lamp beside the bed no longer needs to illuminate anything beyond these four walls. Its light rests quietly across the nearest furniture and goes no farther. Outside, rain crosses a world that once again has ordinary dimensions. You begin moving back toward the bed. At the window, the rain sounds exactly as it did at the beginning. Small drops touch the glass. Others join them. Thin streams wander downward and disappear beyond the sill. There is no rain beneath the clouds now. No silver wall held back by invisible boundaries. No courtyard fountain or roof high above the weather. Only an ordinary rainy night outside an ordinary bedroom. And somehow the sound contains all the other rain you heard along the way. You do not need to separate one from another. They have become the same sound again. The curtains hang quietly beside the glass. Their dark folds are completely familiar. The night beyond them asks nothing more of you. The bedside lamp is still glowing. You cannot remember whether it ever went out. Its light is exactly as small and warm as it was before the first impossible door appeared. The same patch of wall catches its amber glow. The same shadows gather beyond it. Nothing in the room suggests how far the night seemed to carry you. You stand beside the bed for a moment, listening to rain and looking at the little lamp. The worlds behind the vanished door already feel difficult to arrange in memory. A moon beneath a floor, a room drifting through rafters, weather waiting for walls that did not exist. Each image softens as soon as you reach for it. The bed does not. The bed is here. You settle beneath the covers. The perspective lowers until the room becomes the same quiet arrangement you saw at the beginning of the night. Window, curtains, lamp, shadowed wardrobe. Soft bedding along the lower edge of your view. Nothing remains to explore. There are no doors waiting to open and no stairs asking to be followed. You have returned to the simplest place in the entire dream. A warm bed beside a rainy window. The mattress settles beneath you. The blankets hold their familiar weight. You listen for some distant sound from the hidden house. There is nothing, only rain. For the first time all night, you are content not to wonder what might be beyond the wall. The lamp grows dimmer. Rain continues across the glass. Your eyes rest on the window without really focusing on anything beyond it. For a moment, one tiny point of light appears between the moving drops. Perhaps it is a star. Perhaps it is a distant light beyond the rain. Perhaps it is only the bedside lamp reflected somewhere in the glass. You do not try to decide. After a night spent inside dreams within dreams, certainty feels unnecessary. The point of light remains for a few seconds, then another drop crosses it, and it is gone. The window returns to darkness and silver rain. Your thoughts begin losing their edges once more. The bedside lamp fades until the room is almost dark. Rain continues softly at the window. Nothing appears on the empty wall. No hidden door returns. No distant house calls you back. The night has become small again, gathered around this bed and this familiar sound. Perhaps you woke from one dream into another. Perhaps you traveled farther than sleep usually allows. Perhaps you never left this room at all, and everything beyond it existed only in the quiet space between one raindrop and the next. There is no reason to choose. The answer can wait somewhere beyond sleep. The rain goes on. The room remains warm, and while the night keeps its secrets, you let the last thought drift away and sleep.